Welcome to Wisdom for the Present, where we take ancient truth and bring it into clear, modern understanding. This episode uses AI-generated narration based on human-researched and written material.
Thank you so much for joining us again.
Yeah, so I want to start with a question for you, the listener. What if the secret to a lasting, passionate relationship isn't, achieving perfect harmony?
Right.
Like, what if it's actually actively manufacturing a little bit of conflict? What if the absolute worst thing you can do for your romance is just agree on everything all the time?
I mean, it completely upends the modern fairy tale, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because we're constantly sold this idea that true love is frictionless. You find your soulmate, and everything is just easy from then on.
Exactly.
But today, we're diving into a perspective that says a completely frictionless relationship is, well, it's actually just a flatline. It's a relationship that's slowly dying of boredom.
Dying of boredom, yeah. And what's wild is that this isn't some edgy modern psychology thesis, right?
No, not at all.
This insight comes to us from a really ancient text. So today, our deep dive is focusing entirely on, honestly, one of the most remarkable, psychologically devastating maps of the human heart ever put to paper. We are looking at part 3 of the Tirukkural.
Yeah, the Tirukkural, for those who might not be familiar with it, it is an absolute titan of world literature.
Oh, absolutely.
A classic Tamil text written in southern India by a poet and philosopher known as Valluvar. And dating it is notoriously difficult. I mean, scholars place it anywhere from like the 3rd century BCE to the 5th century CE.
Which is a huge range.
It is, yeah. But regardless of the exact date, its impact is just undeniable. It's structured into 1,330 short couplets or curals, and they're divided into 3 massive books.
Right, the 3 books being Virtue, Wealth, and Love.
Exactly.
And it's that 3rd book, the book on love, or Kamathupal, that we are unpacking today.
Yes.
Because while the first 2 books deal with the outer world, ethics, statecraft, making a living, this 3rd book turns the camera entirely inward.
It really does. It's a masterclass in what the ancient Tamils called ahim poetry.
Ahim poetry.
Yeah, which is basically the poetry of the inner landscape. And Valluvar doesn't just describe love as a mild, pleasant emotion. He dissects it.
Oh, he puts it under a microscope.
He really does. He looks at the infatuation, the absolute agony of long-distance separation, the societal rumors, and, that manufactured conflict we mentioned earlier.
He literally maps the entire life cycle of romantic attachment.
He does. And the core wisdom we want to extract from this text today is how Valluvar treats love not as just a singular feeling, but as an all-consuming sensory totality.
Right.
It is a force that acts simultaneously as a deadly weapon, a wasting physical disease, and miraculously, its own cure. It completely shatters the individual's equilibrium.
It shatters you. So let's start right where the text starts, the initial strike of infatuation.
Okay, let's go there.
Because we aren't starting with 2 people having a polite conversation over coffee here. We are starting with an ambush.
An absolute ambush, yes.
The narrator, the young man in this ancient setting, he sees a beautiful woman for the first time, and his entire reality just fractures.
It breaks apart.
He literally questions what species she is. He asks, and I'm quoting here, "Is this jeweled female a celestial, a choice peahen, or a human being? My mind is perplexed."
And that confusion is the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the historical and human context here is so vital because Valluvar uses language that borders on the violent to describe the onset of attraction.
It does feel violent.
The narrator is entirely disoriented. In the very next verse, he looks at her gaze and compares her eyes to an armed band being led forth by a goddess.
An armed band, like an army.
Right, and then he escalates it to a cosmic level. The narrator says, "I never knew before what is called Yama. I see it now. It is the eyes that carry on a great fight with female qualities."
Okay, wait, Yama is the god of death in Hindu mythology, right?
That is correct.
Why on earth would an ancient poet equate a new crush to the god of death? I mean, that sounds like a hostile takeover, not a romance. It makes love sound like an invading army.
Well, because it is a hostile takeover.
Really?
Yeah, and that is the profound psychological truth Valluvar is identifying here. He isn't saying the woman herself is evil or malicious.
Right.
He's saying that the experience of sudden, violent infatuation is an assault on your ego. It is the death of your autonomy.
Oh, wow. The death of your autonomy.
Exactly. Yama is the ultimate equalizer. He's the force you cannot negotiate with, the force that strips away all your earthly power and your defenses.
So when you fall in love...
When you fall completely, helplessly into infatuation, your logic, your peace of mind, your independence, they are all conquered. Your defenses are breached by this, this armed band.
That maps so perfectly to the neurobiology of a new crush.
Doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, we call it a crush because it literally crushes your baseline functioning.
You can't think straight.
You can't focus on your spreadsheets at work, your sleep schedule is obliterated, you're constantly checking your phone, your amygdala and your dopamine pathways have been completely hijacked.
You are conquered territory.
You really are. And Valluvar points out how comprehensive this takeover is by looking at the sensory experience. He makes this incredible observation that love is the only experience that simultaneously engages all five senses at once.
Yes, I love that part. The verse explicitly states, the simultaneous enjoyment of the five senses of sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch can only be found with bright, braceleted women.
And I love how he contrasts this with honey.
Oh, the honey analogy is brilliant.
He says, unlike boiled honey, which yields delight only when it is drunk, love gives pleasure even when looked at.
Right.
Because if you think about it, honey is just taste. A beautiful symphony is just sound. A sunset is just sight.
We experience the world fragmented.
Exactly, one sense at a time. But love, it floods the entire sensory apparatus all at once. No wonder the nervous system treats it like an invading army.
It's a total system overload. And that total sensory hijack leads us directly to the core paradox of this first stage of love. Because it's an invading force, it creates a sickness in the host. The dopamine surge creates a baseline deficit. Valluvar writes, disease and medicine antagonists we surely see. This maid, to pain she gives, herself is remedy.
To pain she gives, herself is remedy. That is just brilliant.
It's so accurate.
Because usually, if you have a biological fever, the cure is an external antagonist. You take a pill, something entirely different from the bacteria, to kill the bacteria.
Right.
But with romantic obsession, the source of your absolute agony is the exact and only thing that can relieve it. The poison is the antidote.
Yes, and he drives this home in another couplet. He says, withdraw, it burns. Approach, it soothes the pain. Whence did the maid this wondrous fire obtain?
Wow.
It perfectly describes the closed loop of romantic obsession.
The burning loop.
Exactly. When the object of your infatuation withdraws, your dopamine crashes. The ancient poet describes it as literally burning.
Yeah, that deficit is like an aching void in your psyche.
And when they approach, or, in modern terms, when they finally text you back, it soothes the pain.
The fire goes out.
But only momentarily. Because the cycle is bound to repeat. The infatuation itself is a fever.
So if you're out there listening and you're finding yourself completely overwhelmed by a new obsession right now, this is such a powerful framework to borrow.
It really is.
When you feel like Yama has just kicked down your door, can you recognize it as a temporary biological and sensory fever rather than like the ultimate permanent reality?
Just step back and observe it.
Yeah, just being able to look at the chaos in your brain and say, my five senses have been hijacked and I am desperately seeking the disease to be my cure. Just labeling that paradox can sometimes return a tiny fraction of that lost autonomy.
Absolutely. Labeling the storm is the first step to surviving it. Because once the internal strike of infatuation takes hold, it immediately runs into the external constraints of the real world.
Which is where things get really complicated.
Very complicated. In the ancient Tamil landscape, this premarital phase was called kalavu, which translates to secret love.
Secret love.
These lovers couldn't just, announce their feelings or go on a public date. The society was deeply communal, tightly knit, and heavily monitored.
So how do you communicate a sensory overload that feels like the god of death when you're standing in the middle of a crowded village market?
You have to rely entirely on subtext.
Right.
Valluvar gives us a masterclass in the furtive glance. He claims in one verse that a single stolen glance of her eyes is more than half the pleasure of sexual embrace.
More than half. That is wild.
It speaks to the amplification of desire through constraint.
Makes sense.
When your physical actions are restricted, your imagination and your perception become hypersensitive. Every micro-expression is analyzed.
It's like you're reading a secret code.
Exactly. The text describes an incredibly intricate choreography of eyes. The narrator says, when I look, she looks down. When I do not, she looks and smiles gently.
Oh, the tension.
And another couplet notes, she not only avoids a direct look at me, but looks as it were with a half-closed eye and smiles.
It's the thrill of the modern talking stage, right? Or a secret office romance.
Oh, that's a perfect modern translation.
Imagine you're in a horribly boring quarterly review meeting. The stakes are low, the environment is sterile, But you catch that one furtive, half-second glance across the boardroom table from the person you're secretly seeing.
Nobody else in the room notices a thing.
Exactly. But for the two of you, the air is completely electrified. The constraint of the professional environment makes the connection explosive.
Yes. The societal constraint acts as a pressure vessel. And in the Tirukkural, that pressure vessel is the village, the local gossip, the mothers, the neighbors.
Gossip mill.
Which brings us to a fascinating psychological insight Valluvar has regarding rumors. Because you would naturally assume that a secret romance being discovered and gossiped about would be disastrous.
Oh, 100%. You'd think the lovers would want to extinguish the rumor immediately to protect themselves. You'd think they'd retreat.
But Valluvar says the exact opposite happens.
Really?
Yeah. He says the rumor acts as manure to the love. Manure. The verse reads, "This malady of lust is manured by the talk of women and watered by the harsh words of my mother."
So the harshness makes the plant grow faster? That's crazy.
It's a perfect description of what modern psychology calls reactance theory.
Reactance theory. Okay. Unpack that for me.
Well, when an external force tries to restrict a freedom, in this case, the freedom to love, the psychological desire for that specific freedom dramatically intensifies.
Oh, we often call it the Romeo and Juliet effect.
Exactly that. And Valluvar gives us an incredibly vivid, almost dangerous analogy for this. He says, to say that one could extinguish passion by rumor is like extinguishing fire with ghee.
Extinguishing fire with ghee, and ghee is clarified butter.
Pure fat.
It's pure fat. It is highly, violently flammable.
Exactly.
The village thinks it's gossip, and its harsh moral judgments will smother the inappropriate affair, but they are literally pouring boiling oil onto a bonfire.
They're making it worse.
We see this all the time today. I mean, public opposition almost always galvanizes young couples rather than tearing them apart.
So true.
The more the parents disapprove or, the friend group talks behind their backs, the more it creates a bunker mentality. It becomes us against the world. The rumor solidifies the bond.
It really does. As the poet says, the rumor rising makes my love to rise. My love would lose its power and languish otherwise.
Wow. But pressure vessels can only hold so much kinetic energy before the structural integrity fails.
Right. There's a breaking point to this secrecy and this societal pressure.
And this is where Valluvar introduces one of the most countercultural, visually jarring, and frankly, difficult concepts in the entire text.
Yes, it's a concept known in ancient Tamil literature as Madal Iru.
Madal Iru, which translates to riding the Palmyra horse.
The Palmyra horse.
I have to be honest, when I first read this part of the translation, I was completely baffled. It feels so bizarre and extreme.
It is very extreme.
The text talks about a lover who has been pushed to the absolute brink. The secrecy, the rumors, and the unrequited agony have broken him. So what does he do?
He abandons all modesty.
Right. He strips off his regular clothes, smears his body with ash, and literally constructs a crude, rough horse out of the jagged, thorny fronds of the Palmyra palm tree.
Which are incredibly sharp.
And then he publicly rides this agonizing, saw-toothed palm stem horse through the streets to declare his unrequited love and his pain to the entire town.
The verses describing this are stark. The narrator says, "I once retained reserve and seemly manliness. Today I not possess but lover's horse of palm."
It's just so tragic.
And even more powerfully, he says, "Love's rushing tide will sweep away the raft of seemly manliness and shame combined."
Now, look, if we look at this literally through a modern lens, it's incredibly alarming.
They're highly alarming.
It reads like a terrifying public spectacle designed to coerce someone. It's the ultimate, if I can't have you, I'm going to make a bloody public display of my pain until the society forces you to marry me.
Yeah.
It crosses every conceivable boundary we have today regarding consent and stalking.
We certainly have to apply discernment here. The literal practice of Madala Iru is a relic of a highly specific, patriarchal, ancient social context.
Right.
In that society, there were very few formal avenues to protest unfulfilled betrothals. Often, it was used as a nuclear option when families blocked a marriage.
A literal nuclear option.
Exactly. But if we pull back from the literal ancient custom, which we obviously do not endorse, what is the enduring psychological truth Valluvar is trying to convey by including this extreme image?
I think it's about the terrifying vulnerability of the human ego. He's showing us the exact moment the ego snaps.
Precisely. It is the moment when biological passion completely overrides the human instinct for self-preservation and social standing.
Because the pain of the palm fronds is secondary to the emotional pain.
Yes, the palmara fronds are incredibly sharp. Riding them would cause severe physical lacerations. The physical pain is a manifestation of the internal psychic tearing. Valluvar is acknowledging that love has the power to take a dignified, respected, highly rational individual and completely strip them of their raft of seemly manliness and shame.
It forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question for modern listeners. What happens to us when the internal pressure of hidden love exceeds the structural integrity of our carefully curated public persona?
The persona collapses.
The raft gets swept away by the rushing tide, and the desperation becomes public. It's a harsh reminder that love isn't always neat, dignified, or poetic.
No, sometimes it reduces us to raw, embarrassing, agonizing vulnerability.
And we obviously aren't building horses out of palm branches today, but we all know the modern equivalence of the ego collapsing.
We definitely do.
It's the deeply embarrassing, overly emotional text message sent at 3 a.m. that you can never unsend.
Yeah.
It's showing up somewhere you shouldn't just to catch a glimpse of them. It's the moment you let the raft of your dignity get swept away because the internal pain of holding it together is worse than the external shame of falling apart.
And recognizing that universal vulnerability helps us view the extremes of human romantic behavior with a bit more psychological clarity.
Right.
We rightly establish modern boundaries against the behaviors themselves, but we can have deep empathy for the psychic break that causes them.
That makes total sense. So, assuming the lovers survive the societal pressure, the rumors, and the potential ego death, they eventually unite.
Yes, finally.
In the Tirukkural, this transitions us into the karpu phase, which is post-marital, chaste, wedded love.
The second major phase of the love book.
You'd think this is the happily ever after.
You really would.
But Valluvar is a realist. Life immediately intervenes. In the ancient world, men frequently had to leave their wives for extended periods, right?
Yes, to gather wealth, serve the king, or fight in wars.
So the emotional high of their long-awaited union crashes violently into the physical reality of absence.
And this section of the text is profoundly moving. It resonates deeply with ancient medical philosophies, too.
How so?
Because Valluvar explores the grief of separation, not just as a fleeting emotional mood, but as a severe, life-threatening physical illness.
The mind mapping onto the body.
Exactly. The mind's pain instantly maps onto the body. The text speaks of the woman's eyes drying up from weeping, to the point where the physiological mechanism of tears is entirely exhausted.
Oh, that's awful.
She says, "These painted eyes have caused me a lasting mortal disease, and now they can weep no more, the tears having dried up."
And the most dominant physical symptom Valluvar dwells on is this sickly, pallid hue.
Yes.
A profound sallowness or yellowing that overtakes the woman's body. He writes, "Just as my lover departed then, did not sallowness spread here on my person."
She even personifies the sickness, doesn't she?
She does. She says, "Sallowness, as if proud of having been caused by him, would now ride on my person."
If we look at broader human wisdom traditions, this somatic connection, this mind-body link, is universal.
Really? Where else do we see it?
Well, traditional Chinese medicine explicitly links the emotion of grief to the physical functioning of the lungs and the paleness of the skin.
Interesting.
And Ayurvedic traditions observe that severe emotional severing disrupts the bodily doshas, leading to literal physical wasting. The body keeps the score of the separation.
The trauma downregulates the immune system.
It does. It alters blood flow. It changes everything.
It is incredibly visceral in the text. There's this tragic recurring image throughout this section. The withered arms and the slipping bracelets.
The slipping bracelets. It's such a poignant detail.
The grieving wife looks at her own body and says, "These wasted arms, the bracelet with their wonted beauty gone, the cruelty declare of that most cruel one."
And her friend, the confidant character in the poetry, observes this too.
Right. She says, "In the absence of your consort, your shoulders having lost their former beauty and fullness, your bracelets of pure gold have become loose."
She is literally wasting away from the grief.
She's losing so much physical mass that her jewelry falls right off her wrists.
It's a striking image of physical depletion. The life force is draining out of her because her anchor has been removed.
You know, when I read about the slipping bracelets and the physical wasting, it immediately made me think of modern cardiology.
Really? Cardiology?
Yes, specifically a condition called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It's colloquially known as broken heart syndrome. We used to think of dying from a broken heart as just romantic poetry, but it is a highly documented, verifiable medical phenomenon.
How exactly does the mechanism work?
Okay, so when a person experiences an extreme, sudden emotional trauma like the death of a spouse or a devastating romantic severing, the brain triggers a massive, overwhelming surge of stress hormones.
Like adrenaline.
Exactly, primarily catecholamines like adrenaline. And this surge is so toxic and so intense that it literally stuns the heart muscle.
It stuns it.
The left ventricle of the heart rapidly balloons out and changes shape. It takes on the shape of a takotsubo.
What is a takotsubo?
It's a Japanese pot used to trap octopuses. It has a narrow neck and a wide base. The heart muscle is physically paralyzed by the grief. It perfectly mimics a massive heart attack, complete with chest pain, shortness of breath, and in severe cases, it can be fatal.
That is terrifying.
Right. The slipping bracelets in Valluvar's poetry are the ancient observation of this exact same mind-body devastating loop. The emotional severance physically breaks the biological machine.
That is a staggering parallel. And Valluvar shows that this systemic breakdown doesn't just alter the internal biology, it completely alters how the individual perceives the external environment.
Oh, yes. The psychology of how our surroundings turn against us.
Valluvar dedicates an incredible section to lamentations at eventide. Evening, which used to be the time of romantic joy, the time the day's labor ended and couples reunited, suddenly becomes a weapon.
A weapon.
She cries out, "Thou art not evening, but a spear that doth devour the souls of brides."
Because evening is the threshold, it is the time of transition.
Exactly. Without her husband there to meet her at that threshold, the setting sun is just a glaring cosmic reminder of the void.
It's throwing her loss right in her face.
She goes further, saying, "In the absence of my lover, evening comes in like slayers on the field of slaughter."
Like slayers.
And it's not just the visual environment. Ordinary, peaceful sounds become agonizing. She complains, "The shepherd's flute is like a murderous weapon to my ear, for it proclaims the hour of evening's fiery anguish near."
A shepherd's flute. I mean, the most pastoral, gentle, peaceful sound imaginable in an ancient agricultural society is experienced as a murderous weapon.
It's profound.
Why? Because the context of her safety is gone.
It is a profound insight into how trauma and grief rewire our perception entirely. The triggers that cause us pain aren't necessarily inherently frightening things.
Right, a flute isn't dangerous, a sunset isn't dangerous.
But the trigger is the sensory reminder of the absence of the expected comfort. The environment is perceived entirely through the lens of the internal wound.
The nervous system is so frayed that a gentle melody feels like a physical blow. For you listening, if you're dealing with profound grief, a massive breakup, or even just the chronic aching anxiety of a long-distance relationship, this ancient wisdom offers a deeply practical framing.
It gives you permission.
Yes, expect and forgive your body's physical rebellion. You might lose your appetite, your skin might pale, you might feel literal, crushing physical pain in your chest.
Your metaphorical bracelets might slip.
Yes. That isn't a sign of weakness. That is a human biological reality documented thousands of years ago.
And recognize your triggers.
Recognize that your environment, a certain song on the radio, a specific restaurant you used to frequent, or just the transition of the evening hour itself may suddenly feel like a devouring spear.
You have to prepare for it.
Expect those triggers, recognize them as echoes of your absent anchor. Prepare for them so you aren't completely blindsided when a harmless sunset suddenly makes you want to collapse.
Forgiving the body's rebellion is so crucial, because when the waking world and the physical body are in this much pain, the human psyche is forced to find an escape hatch.
The pressure is simply too high.
And that escape hatch is the mind. The abandoned lover retreats entirely into her own consciousness, and specifically into the dream world.
But she doesn't find peace in her own mind.
No, she doesn't.
What she finds is a brutal civil war.
Valluvar describes a profound internal conflict where the mind battles the heart. The logical part of the soul recognizes the reality of the situation. He is gone, he left me behind.
Right.
But the emotional core, the attachment system, refuses to align with that logic. She begins speaking to her own soul as if it were a traitorous stranger living inside her body.
A traitor.
She says, "Oh, my soul, although you have seen how his soul stands by him, how is it you do not stand by me?"
She is furious at her own heart for still loving a man who caused her this much pain.
It's the ultimate betrayal.
She asks, "Oh, my soul, can he who loves not though he is beloved be forsaken, saying he hates me now?"
And then she uses this incredibly violent metaphor for the internal conflict.
Oh, this quote is amazing. She says, "The axe of lust breaks the door of chastity, which is bolted with the bolt of shame."
The axe of lust.
The emotional desire is an axe continually chopping down the logical, dignified doors she tries to put up.
It captures the cognitive dissonance of romantic attachment perfectly. Reason dictates one clear course of action. He has left, protect your dignity, focus on yourself, move on.
Right, logic is screaming that.
But the biological attachment is entirely unreasonable. Valluvar writes, "The dignity that would not go after an absent lover is not known to those who are stricken by love."
Because the logic center of the brain is essentially powered down.
It's overridden by the evolutionary drive to reconnect with the attachment figure.
We see this civil war constantly in the modern era. Think about the exact feeling of obsessively checking your phone to see if an ex has watched your Instagram story.
Oh, everyone has been there.
Or opening an old text thread at 2 a.m. Your logical brain is screaming, "Put the phone down, have some dignity, let it go. This is only gonna hurt you."
The bolt of shame is desperately trying to hold the door closed.
Yes. But the emotional core, the axe of lust, the craving for that dopamine hit of connection, just chops right through the logic, and you check the phone anyway.
You feel like a helpless stranger to your own actions.
You are losing a war against yourself.
And when the waking mind is this fractured, when the cognitive dissonance becomes too exhausting to maintain, the only true refuge left is the unconscious state.
Sleep.
Yes, Valluvar's text develops a near obsession with dreams during this period of separation.
It really is heartbreaking. The narrator literally begs her eyes to close. She says, "If my fish-like painted eyes should, at my begging, close in sleep, I could fully relate my sufferings to my Lord."
She can only communicate with him when she's entirely divorced from reality.
She tells her confidant, "My life lasts because in my dream I behold him who does not favor me in my waking hours."
The ultimate tragic expression of this retreat is verse 12:16. She says, "Were there no such thing as wakefulness, my beloved who visited me in my dream would not depart from me."
She is explicitly stating that she prefers the hallucination of sleep to the reality of her waking life.
She wants to sleep forever.
Okay, wait, isn't that just pure delusion, though? Why would an ancient text frame escaping into a hallucination as a sustainable state?
Right, yeah.
I mean, in any modern psychological framework, retreating entirely into a dream world and preferring a phantom of an ex to your actual waking life seems deeply maladaptive. Shouldn't the wisdom be to wake up, face reality, and process the grief rather than hiding in sleep?
From a long-term perspective, you are entirely correct. Chronic retreat into fantasy is maladaptive. It prevents closure.
Right.
But we have to look at the immediate acute function of this dream state in the aftermath of trauma. This is a vital survival mechanism for the human psyche when reality is temporarily unendurable.
It's a stopgap.
It is a holding pattern for a broken heart.
A holding pattern.
Exactly. Think about the symptoms we just discussed. The physical shock of the separation, the pallid hue, the slipping bracelets, the environment acting like a devouring spear, the mind at war with itself.
Systemic failure.
The central nervous system is experiencing systemic failure. If the psyche were forced to process the totality of that loss all at once, the system would completely crash.
So what does the brain do?
It uses dreams and fantasies to titrate the pain. It administers the grief in small, manageable doses while using the dream to provide a synthetic dose of connection to keep the host alive.
My life lasts because in my dream I behold him.
Yes. The dream is literally keeping her biological engine running until she has gathered enough psychological strength to face the waking world.
Wow.
It is delusion, yes, but it's a highly specific medicinal delusion.
Medicinal delusion. Wow. The disease and the medicine making an appearance again, just in a different form.
The psyche generating its own painkillers.
Okay, so we've been through the agonizing separation, the physical wasting away, the civil war of the mind, and the refuge of dreams.
A lot.
Eventually, the deployment ends, the wanderer returns, the lovers are finally brought back together.
The pain of absence is over.
You would logically assume that Valluvar ends the Tirukkural with them existing in a state of perfect, blissful, unbroken harmony for the rest of their lives.
You would definitely assume that.
But this is where Valluvar reveals himself to be one of the most sophisticated psychological observers of the ancient world.
The final section of the book is arguably the most surprising.
It's shocking.
He argues that perfect, unbroken harmony is not the ideal state of a relationship. In fact, lasting love requires active friction.
This final section, which focuses on oodal, translated as pouting or feigned anger, is absolutely wild to read.
It's almost comical.
The lovers are finally together after all this agony, and what do? They manufacture arguments.
They pick fights.
They literally pick fights over absolutely nothing. The husband sneezes, just a normal involuntary bodily function, and the wife immediately bursts into tears, demanding to know which other woman he was thinking of to cause the sneeze.
The verse goes, "When I sneezed, she blessed me, but at once changed her mind and wept, asking, at the thought of whom did you sneeze?"
And the psychological trap gets even better.
Oh, it does. Knowing she will overreact, he feels a sneeze coming on later and tries to suppress it.
And what does she do?
She weeps again, accusing him of hiding his true thoughts from her. He says, "When I suppressed my sneezing, she wept, saying, I suppose you did so to hide from me your own people's remembrance of you."
It is a classic, inescapable double bind. He literally cannot win.
He can't.
He tells her, "I love you more than all beside." And she immediately snaps back, what all, and gets furious, assuming he has a massive hidden roster of other women he is constantly comparing her to.
He even laments, "Even when I look on her, contemplating her beauty, she is displeased and says, with whose thought have you thus looked on my person?"
She is actively, ruthlessly hunting for a reason to be displeased with him.
Okay, if a close friend sat me down today and told me their partner was acting like this, crying when they sneeze, microscopically picking apart their compliments, constantly accusing them of thinking of other people when they're just sitting quietly, I would tell them to run. You'd say it's a huge red flag.
Immediately, it sounds like deeply toxic, manipulative, exhausting game playing. Why on earth would a revered wisdom text endorse picking paranoid fights?
Because Valluvar is asking us to look beneath the surface behavior to the structural psychological purpose it serves.
Okay.
The wisdom here isn't about promoting genuine toxicity, abuse, or actual paranoia. The text explicitly tells us what is happening through a brilliant culinary metaphor.
Let's hear it.
Valluvar writes, "A cool reserve is like the salt that seasons well the mess. Too long maintained, 'tis like the salt excess."
The salt that seasons the mess being the meal.
Exactly. And another verse reinforces this. "Love without hatred is ripened fruit. Without some lesser strife, fruit immature."
So what is the law he's identifying?
Valluvar has identified a fundamental, immutable law of human desire. Desire, by definition, requires a gap. It requires a distance to cross.
If you already fully possess something, you cannot desire it.
Exactly. When two people are perfectly aligned, perfectly secure, perfectly predictable, and perfectly harmonious at all times, the tension dissolves.
And without tension,
eroticism and passion turn into apathy. The relationship becomes bland, like boiling a pot of rice and forgetting to add any salt.
or it becomes cloying.
Too sweet and mushy, like overripe fruit that has lost its firmness.
So the feigned anger, the pouting, the manufactured jealousy over the sneeze, it's not actual paranoia. It's a mechanism for artificially reintroducing distance into a relationship that has become too secure.
Precisely. It is a highly evolved game of psychological hide and seek. By feigning anger, she creates a temporary, manageable obstacle.
She forces him to pursue her again.
She makes him prove his devotion through coaxing, through apologies, through reassurance. The text explicitly says, "A feigned aversion coy to pleasure gives a zest. The pleasure's crowned when breast is clasped to breast."
The reunion immediately following the minor manufactured argument is exponentially sweeter than a continuous, flat baseline of unending peace.
Because they cross the gap again.
And the lovers both know exactly what they're doing. Valluvar writes, "In lovers' quarrels, 'tis the one that first gives way, that in reunion's joy is seen to win the day."
He knows she's not actually going to pack her bags and leave him over a sneeze.
And she knows he's not actually pining for another woman. It is role play.
It is a safe, contained arena to experience the thrill of potential loss without the actual danger.
It's the psychological necessity of maintaining a slight edge, a bit of mystery, and avoiding the absolute death knell of long-term romance being taken for granted.
It prevents the total merging of identities. When you are too close for too long, you lose the otherness of your partner.
You stop seeing them as a separate, mysterious entity and start seeing them as just an extension of your own living room furniture.
The feigned anger reminds them both. I am separate from you. I have my own mind. I have my own boundaries. You do not entirely possess me.
It injects a tiny homeopathic dose of uncertainty back into the system.
And that slight uncertainty sparks the evolutionary drive to reconnect, to conquer the distance all over again.
It is brilliant, but applying modern discernment here is absolutely key. We aren't saying you should gaslight your partner.
Definitely not.
We aren't suggesting you start screaming matches in public or engage in genuine emotional manipulation. We are talking about play.
We are talking about the teasing, the banter, the slight pushback that refuses to let the dynamic go flat.
So look at your own relationships right now. Are you over-salting them? Are you introducing unnecessary, genuine drama, actual jealousy, and deep insecurities that damage the baseline trust?
Which is the salt's excess.
Right. Or, on the flip side, are you serving your relationship completely bland? Are you so terrified of conflict, so desperate for a smooth ride, that you've let the desire go totally stale?
Are you lacking the playful friction, the teasing, the intellectual pushback, the zest that keeps passion alive?
That is the delicate, masterful balance of the salt, finding the sweet spot between devastating, soul-crushing separation, which we saw earlier with the pallid hue, the slipping bracelets, and the actual wasting away, and the suffocating, frictionless unity that puts passion to sleep.
It is an incredible, sweeping journey this text takes us on.
From the violent god of death strike of initial infatuation, where the five senses are hijacked and the disease is the only cure,
to the constrained, heavily manured fires of secret courtship, where the ego is pushed to the absolute brink of the Palmyra horse.
through the physical, literal heartbreak of the slipping bracelets, the Takatsubo-like wasting away, and the civil war of the mind finding its only medicinal delusion in dreams.
And finally, arriving at the profound realization that even happily ever after requires the salt of strife to keep it flavorful.
Valluvar maps the entire life cycle of romantic attachment with a biological, psychological, and sociological precision that is simply staggering for an ancient text.
He forces us to look at love not as a static painting, but as a living, breathing, constantly shifting organism that requires both connection and distance to survive.
He really does. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on everything we've just uncovered in this ancient masterpiece. If the Tirukkural teaches us that love actually requires the salt of temporary distance and feigned anger to survive, what if our entire modern goal of relationships is slightly skewed?
What if the ultimate expression of lasting love isn't arriving at a finish line of perfect, frictionless harmony?
What if true romance isn't about never fighting and always agreeing? What if instead the most profound love is the continuous, active, playful choice to constantly close the small distances we intentionally create between us? That's the heart of this section. This is wisdom for the present, where understanding leads to clarity, and clarity shapes how we see and live. We'll see you in the next episode.